Every Sunday when we're able to gather in church, everyone seems to sit in the same place. There's a long tradition in the Church of England and probably other churches of sitting at the back, and people cluster back behind me now. But at certain points I know as I look out that I can see the same faces in exactly the same spot. Some of them have sat there for the previous 150 years. However, occasionally people mix around and they confuse me by sitting somewhere else. And of course, in a church like this, there's no sense that people have ownership of seats. How different that is from a previous building on this site, which was on exactly the same footprint. This has been the size of Liverpool Parish Church for some hundreds of years. But picture before the building was destroyed in the Blitz, an older building with galleries all around on every side. And the galleries held hundreds of people. Overall, the capacity of this church was over 1,300 people. And people sat in the same seat every week, not out of custom or because they liked the view, but because they had bought it. And when you owned a pew, that then was yours for life.
At the very end of the 17th century, an additional aisle was built onto Liverpool Parish Church, and this is a document transferring the rights to one of the pews in the aisle to the new owner. Ownership was an awkward point, so this was termed an indenture. The same word, incidentally, was used for young apprentices. In both instances, it was a useful word for hiding the reality of possession. We have a lot of these pew indentures in our archives. You did not just acquire the right to sit in a particular pew, but you also acquired the responsibility for maintaining it, and also for maintaining the wall and floor around it. If that indenture showed the ownership of one pew, then this plan shows the ownership of all the ground floor pews in the 18th century. Each one has been allocated in some way, and of course the most important people had their seats in the middle. Even when the new parish church of St. Peter had been built in 1704 and St. Nicholas's was designated the parochial chapel, it was still socially important to have a position at St. Nicholas's. Here you can see the central area allocated to the mayor and corporation, that is the council, and just to the north of them, the Earl of Derby maintained 2 pews. Behind the corporation pew, there are a number of pews allocated to the parish, which showed some awareness that people other than the wealthy might want to attend the church, which also included those bringing their children for baptism, for whom there is a pew at the very back on the north side called the christening pew. By the beginning of the 19th century, well over 1,500 baptisms took place every year at St. Nicholas's, though of course these will not have taken place during the main Sunday services. You will also notice that a lot of pews are labelled rectors. An historical quirk of the parish was that there were 2 incumbents rather than 1, and the rent they received for these pews contributed significantly to their income. The tithes payable to incumbents in country parishes were not as significant in urban areas. By the 1730s, they were contributing only £20 a year to the stipend of the rectors of Liverpool, and in 1743 it was suggested that they should be done away with altogether. St. Nick's was refurbished and the pews replaced in 1852, so we don't have photographs to match the pew plans, but this photograph of St. Peter's Church in Liverpool, taken at the end of the 19th century but with 18th century pews, gives a sense of how it might have felt. Pews were therefore often about income, power and status. As Liverpool grew and more churches were built within the parish, by the mid-19th century the parish of Liverpool contained over 30 churches, there was a commitment to cater for all classes. In 1792, the vestry debated whether they should take as many seats as possible in Trinity Church on an annual rent for the use of the poor. Of course, the result of this was that the rich and the poor were less likely to worship together. When St. Paul's Church was built in 1769, sited in what is now St. Paul's Square, just off Old Hall Street, it was initially decided to make the entire nave open for public use. But as the invoices for building the church came in, it seemed more prudent to sell off as many of the gallery seats as possible on 900-year leases to pay off the loan for the building. Returning to St. Nick's, this is the plan of the gallery pews, where one might presume that, like the grand circle at the theatre, the pews at the front of the gallery were more expensive than the ones at the back. However, we can also see here a hint about worship. Thomas Webster's 1847 painting The Village Choir is a famous depiction of the West Gallery singing tradition, which was a frequent part of English worship from about 1700. Here at St Nick's, we have the first example in the country of the choir in a parish church being brought away from the organ at the back and close to the sanctuary at the front, so that music did not just accompany the activity at the front, but was an integral part of the offering of worship in Liverpool.